Hey, here we are, Sports Bit, Betting Insight today, weekend preview edition, Pauly and Teddy. No show Friday because by the time you watch this, Teddy will be in the air to Costa Rica for the football seminar workshop. Isn't that right, Teddy?
Yeah. I mean, you see me unshaved here for a sports bet, unfortunately, running out the door. So trying to squeeze in one last show before we go. Obviously, no show tomorrow because we will be dark, but really looking forward to the workshop. A lot of big names. I'm flying down there with Matthew Holt from CG Technology. We got Gabe Morenski, Ed Feng, Clay Travis from Fox Sports, Mark Lawrence, Gil Alexander, and, of course, a big roundtable with a lot of the names that you guys are familiar with from SBR. We're going to be live streaming. I encourage you, watch it live. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a big event, and hopefully you'll get a lot of good information. I know the presenters are bringing their A game. So that means I got to bring my A game. So let's see if we can get it done. But it should be a lot of fun. And again, Friday and Saturday, live streaming the entire thing. Check it out at SBR, sportsbookreview.com.
I would hope the presenters would bring their A game.
Well, you know, sometimes you think, oh, Costa Rica, everyone's going to be like hanging out and partying and all that. And from everyone, you know, I've talked to a bunch of the guys that are going down there. And there's no one that's like, oh, yeah, we're going to go party. And everyone's like, yeah, well, what are you doing? How are you putting it together? So I think it's business, you know. I'm sure there'll be fun, but it's business. It's about, you know, the sharing ideas and making contacts and getting an opportunity to learn from some of the big names and industry legends. So, again, should be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to meeting a number of the guests that are coming down there from sportsbookreview.com.
Okay, so yep, take care of business, make some contacts, and then the hookers afterwards. Big game breakdown, Hall of Fame game coming up. Football is here. And part two, Rob Veno. Teams to bet on, teams to fade in college football. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. This is a bad bet. The Yankees open 220, close 270. Zimmerman shuts them out, 7 scoreless, 2-0. Tanaka pitched well again, couldn't get any help.
No, and this is your classic go figure type of performance from Jordan Zimmerman. What, he entered the game with the 5.69 ERA. The FIP was just as bad, 5.49. You know, long rain delay. You're like, all right, Zimmerman's in trouble. Nah, he stayed pretty relaxed during that delay. 7 scoreless. As you mentioned, of course, the Tigers bullpen behind him facing the fearsome Yankees lineup. Well, what did that struggling bullpen do? They struck out 4 of the 7 batters they faced. So, bad bet for those who laid it with the Yankees, especially if you laid it later in the day.
Good day for the players, bad day for the shops. We like that. Bad for the book starts with the Blue Jays. Open 195, close 215, as high as 230 here in Vegas. And again, unbelievable, but a last place team laying more than $2 on the road.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Blue Jays aren't your average last place team. You could say they're the best last place team in baseball. But more importantly, you should all know the drill by now. You've been watching SportsBit. You know what's been happening since the All-Star break. The White Sox played, they lost, the books lost. I mean, it's been as consistent as clockwork. It got as high as minus 230 here in Vegas. So that was an early game. Parlay players all over Nevada, 1-0 heading into the night games.
All right, and we talked about Godley yesterday, how good he's been and how good of a run he's been. And if he's a top 10 pitcher, 20-cent move on the Diamondbacks, went off plus 140. They shut out the Cubs 3-0.
Yeah, and what did we say on yesterday's SportsBit? The wise guys all over Arizona at the Open. And again, you can see why. You know, we asked the question on yesterday's SportsBit. Is Zach Godley really one of the 10 best starters in MLB this season? The advanced metric number said that he was. What'd he do against the fearsome Cubs lineup? 6 shutout innings, only gave up 3 hits. He was really good. And the books took it from the wise guys on this one.
All right, surprised by this one. Cardinals money back in Weaver. Suter's been okay for the Brewers. Cardinals win 5-4.
Well, I mean, the markets are all set to like a guy like Luke Weaver. You know, he was a first-round draft pick back in 2014. Really strong numbers at AAA, 9-1 with a .91 ERA. And that was over 13 starts this season. More strikeouts than base runners are allowed. So, and we've seen a fair bit of anti-Brewer sentiment of late, and deservedly so. Milwaukee's not playing good baseball. St. Louis took a bunch of money. They got the money. Bad result for the house.
25-cent move on the Orioles. What was this? Hellickson, 7-inning shutout ball. They beat Kansas City and Vargas.
Yeah, I mean, the Orioles went down 1-0 in the first inning on Monday, and then the rest of the series, they outscored the Royals 15-2. All of a sudden, the Orioles right in the thick of the wild card chase. This is a team that was really hot in April and then pretty much stunk for the better part of 3 months. They're playing April-level baseball right now, and bettors bought into the O's the entire series. Remember, we talked about the Royals and that really strong run that they had. Well, that was against the weak schedule. Now, all of a sudden, 16 of the next 19 games against teams with winning records after an extended stretch of, they played 16 of 19 against teams with losing records. Now the schedule flips. They'll be facing a bunch of teams with winning records coming up.
All right, let's go rapid fire here. It's been a rough couple of weeks here in the NFL with the injuries. The Texans lose Will Fuller, who broke his collarbone. He's out 2 to 3 months. That definitely hurts. Dominic Easley, Rams defensive tackle, tore his ACL, out for the year. That's the third time he's tore his ACL.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Fuller. That's an impact injury for the Houston Texans. I know his numbers as a rookie weren't huge. 47 receptions, 635 yards, 2 touchdowns. Well, he was playing for a team that didn't have a quarterback last year. This year they might have a quarterback, but Fuller's the guy who was supposed to be their deep threat and keep defenses out of the box against the running game. So let's see how long he's out. Collarbone could be a while for the Texans. As for Easley, look, you know, when you're learning a new defense, when you have Wade Phillips who lives and dies by his defensive tackles, and now the starting DT gets hurt in training camp, certainly not a good sign, and especially when you consider the fact that Aaron Donald is still holding out for the L.A. Rams. Wade Phillips does not have a full complement, obviously, to work with right now.
Well, could be worse. You could be the Ravens, who have lost 7 guys in a 62-day span. Dixon out for the year, Pitta out for the year, Gilmore out for the year. They've lost 3 tight ends. Saragusa done, Urschel retired. It's crazy what's going on. Perriman left. He's supposed to be okay, but Perriman left with an injury the other day at practice. Flacco got hurt. Bisciotti, the owner, apparently doesn't want to sign Kaepernick. It's a mess.
Yeah, John Harbaugh, quote, "I think we're going to be fine. We have a lot of good players. We're going to play football games. We're the Ravens, and we're going to be a really good team. That's how we do it." They say, all right, that's coach speak. Then you look at the guy like Marshall Yanda, Pro Bowl guard for Baltimore. At this stage in my career, I try to keep my head down and focus on what is in the building. I try to tell young guys you can't be getting caught up in the media every day because obviously if you read the media, the sky is falling every day, and we aren't going to survive until tomorrow. No, I tell them to put the blinders on and control what we can control. It's bad news for Baltimore, but really, when you're talking about injuries, there's some season enders, but we're not talking about the key players for the Ravens. I think the market is just crashing on Baltimore right now. In my mind, it's a little bit of an overreaction. Most of their key guys are going to be fine if Flacco is okay. If Flacco's not okay, this team's screwed. I'll tell you that right now. Ryan Mallett, what he threw, 5 interceptions during practice last week, and it wasn't very pretty.
No, it wasn't. He stinks. Up next, big game breakdown. It's finally here tonight. Hall of Fame game, Cardinals and the Cowboys, and some movement on the total. And then part 2, college football with Rob Veno on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBet, Betting Insight today. Time for big game breakdown. Sponsored and powered by BetOnline. Exceptional customer service, strong promotions, and every type of wager that we're looking for out there. Check out the bonus page at sportsbookreview.com for the latest and best offers to open a new account today. NBC, here we go tonight. Cowboys and Cardinals, Hall of Fame game. Field looks to be in good shape, unlike the debacle last year. Cowboys won 35 the total. Our good friend Tony Miller at the Golden Nugget weeks ago opened at 39. Oh, they're taking them out with the total there. And people are going to bet this. They're ready to go. How about my co-host, Mitch Moss at Mitch Moss Radio, Chris Andrews at the South Point. Also, many people in the industry have told me the same thing. His tweet, some NFL preseason games will have a higher betting handle than certain World Series games. They love football.
Football is king. And you say, wow, are folks really going to bet preseason games? What, the Hall of Fame game? Degenerates. Oh, you guys are losers. How can you do that? No. We're going to do a deep dive into preseason betting strategies next week right here on SportsBet. But the fact of it is preseason is eminently beatable. We're going to try to do it with the Cowboys and Cardinals tonight. That'll be our play of the day when we get to the end of the show.
All right, the Arians quote earlier in the week, play like shit, treat like shit. He was disgusted, made his players run sprints at the end of practice, something he's only done other time in his 4 seasons was when they had a lousy game or for fighting, and he was sick and tired of the what happened at practice. So he said, you're going to run, and I would expect a big battle of the backups here. No Palmer, no Stanton. Arians came out and said he's not going to play the starters, so that means Blaine Gabbert, who's still in the league, and Trevor Knight, who was at A&M in Oklahoma.
Well, the tweet from Adam Schefter, the Cardinals head coach Bruce Arians tells reporters starters won't play at all in Thursday's Hall of Fame game, but the field looks good, as you mentioned. But the whole key when you talk about preseason football, you throw out anything you think about the teams in the regular season. It makes teams good in the regular season, great. Teams bad in the regular season, great. It makes no difference. It's about who's actually going to be on the field, and most importantly, who's going to be on the field in the second half when the majority of point spread results are decided. So here's Arizona, and Arians, oh man, you play like shit, to treat you like shit. It makes everyone run sprints and all of that. Well, the starters still aren't playing in this ball game, So the reports that I've read for Arizona, no Palmer, no Stanton. You're going to have Gabbert in the first half, Knight in the second. Gabbert played, okay for San Francisco last year. I mean, he wasn't great, but he was serviceable. And when you're talking about a third-string quarterback, Blaine Gabbert's as good as it gets. You want your money on this guy. You, in theory, would want Arizona later in the preseason when Gabbert's going to be playing in the second half of these games. When it's Knight as a rookie making his first appearance, those are guys you tend to want to avoid. For the Dallas side, I mean, again, you're going to get a little bit of Dak Prescott, maybe, one drive, if any. And then we're talking about Kellen Moore, quote-unquote, getting the rust off. And you can see a whole bunch of Cooper Rush, the kid out of Central Michigan, who, again, there's hope for him. But do you expect him to have a good performance? Is he a guy you want to lay points with in the second half of his first NFL game? Maybe not so much.
I talked to my Dallas contact. Luke McCown could play. He might get in there as well, as he's supposed to be third string. They signed him about a week ago.
Yeah, let me just jump in because, one thing that we love about the preseason, the coaches tell us what they're going to do. Like Bruce Arians, we're not going to use the starter. Jason Garrett has really been mum about this game, but you can anticipate looking at the week 1 Dallas games in recent preseasons, and basically every preseason since Garrett's been there, there hasn't been a whole lot of good performances in the second half. Let's just put it that way. Dallas.
Now, how about the last 6 years here with these low-scoring games? Take the under.
Oh, I mean, honestly, under. That's what the recent Hall of Fame games have all been. There was only one game with more than 30 points this decade, and that game had, 44, Miami and Dallas back in 2013. The way that it got to 44, let's see. There was a 9-yard touchdown drive after a botched handoff fumble. There was a pick six. There was a 24-point fourth quarter, including 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes, and it took the second of those 2 touchdowns to get the game over the total. There haven't been many overs. Again, the last time, last year the field was bad, but 14-3 in 2015, 17-13 in 2014, etc. On down the line. These Hall of Fame games have not been very high scoring. It's been defensive struggles.
All right, it's here. And next Wednesday we have a game, and then a week from tonight there's 7 preseason games. So let's make some money out there, and we'll get back to this game coming up. Up next, the Deep Dive Part 2 with Rob Veno. Teams to fade, teams to bet on in college football on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, Part 2 today with Rob Veno from Rob Veno Sports. I love having Rob on at the start or even prior to the start of the season because I know over the hot summer months there's really nobody that does his homework better than Rob Veno. We had him on previewing baseball, and boy, he was prescient in his bullpen breakdowns and his lineup breakdowns, and I expect more prescience when we're talking about Rob Veno in his conference previews. Now, obviously, we're not going to go through every team in every conference over the course of a 5-minute interview. What we have done for the major conferences is highlight one team that Rob wants to feature, bet on or bet against. Let's start today in the Pac-12. Rob, you're looking at Washington State as a team that the betting markets aren't pricing correctly. First, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back for part 2 of your deep dive. Secondly, tell me about Washington State.
First off, Teddy, thanks for having me again. And let's get into Mike Leach, the Pirate, and his team this year. Boy, an extreme increase in win production last year. They were better in almost every category. Yeah, I love Luke Falk. You know, people will argue Josh Rosen's the best quarterback in the Pac-12. I happen to love Luke Falk. Very tough kid. Plays now with an upper-class laden team that's got much improved depth. 8 of the top 10 offensive line come back here. And not only 8 of the top 10 offensive linemen, Teddy, but a couple of guys who are highly decorated across that offensive line. I think big keys for me, the rushing game was the best it's been in 7 years last year at 120 rushing yards per game. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when Mike Leach can get 4.3 a carry and 120 yards per game on the ground, his offense is going to be fantastic. It only allowed 29 sacks last year. Again, the best number in 7 years for this team. Defense brings 9 guys back, only allowed 26.4 points per game last year. Again, they had some top seasonal numbers posted in the last 7 years. Last year, their strength is applying pressure on the quarterback. I think they'll be able to do that this year. They're looking to improve it. Last year, they were 6-7 against the spread. With a team that's virtually back intact, Teddy, and with so many seniors and guys that we'll see taken in the NFL draft, I think they're going to be better than 6-7. Their worst role last year was as a road favorite. 0-2 in the regular season as a road favorite. This year, their 2 road favorite spots are at Cal and at Arizona. Both probably winnable. The one issue I'd have with this team, how about they play 11 straight weeks before their bye week shows up on November 18th? It's good for them that they don't have a lot of back-to-backs, only one back-to-back. So I think they can handle it. They don't play a road game until October. Give me Washington State this year against the spread.
Washington State has been consistently undervalued throughout the Mike Leach era. When Mike Leach has a good senior-laden team like he does this year, Rob Veno says, watch out for the Cougs. Let's move on to the number 1 conference in all of college football. That, of course, being the SEC. But what? We're taking a Big 12 team as a bet on in the SEC? What are you talking about here with the Missouri Tigers?
Yeah, let's look beyond all the pomp and circumstance in this conference, Teddy, and try and find ourselves one of the conference dregs and make money off them. That's what we try to look for each and every year. I'm going to try and do that with Missouri this year. You know, last year's results were hideous for Mizzou. We don't have to get into them. We know how it was. I think, however, though, this is a team that's way, way overlooked, especially in the SEC East. We hear nothing but hype about mid-rung teams like Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee. All these teams supposed to be going places. Nobody talks about Mizzou. When you look at these 4 teams on paper, I can't separate any of them. Missouri's got a much improved offensive line this year. Of course, Drew Lock behind that offensive line was sacked a few times last year. He's got an outstanding receiving core. The ground game is impressive now with Crockett running the football. I think what bit this team last year when they brought DeMonte Cross in to run the defense, he brought in a read and react system. Guys like Charles Harris, who like to get after it, did not function well in that particular scheme. Second half of the year, Barry Odom took over the defensive play calling. They got back to what they do. This year, they will be back to what they do. They've got a deeper defensive line rotation this year than they did last year. They've got to improve the rush defense. They went from allowing only 3.3 yards to 5.3 yards a carry. I think they can do that. Schedule's laid out real well for a winning point spread season here. So with the high-flying offense and the improvement in numbers and in talent on defense, let me take the Missouri Tigers here, Teddy. I think they're as good as any of those teams I mentioned mid-rung in the SEC East.
And most assuredly, like Washington State, a team that is likely to fly under the radar for extended stretches this season. If they're covering point spreads, it won't be the lead story on SportsCenter. One last team to talk about with Rob, one last conference and one last team. That, of course, the AAC, which I'm grouping in with the majors because they're the best midway major. And Rob, the team you have highlighted, Willie Fritz Tulane squad, the Green Wave. a team you got your eye on.
Yeah, and we're not going to play them as a side proposition here, Teddy. We're going to go to the totals and look for Tulane as an over team this year. I just want to read you very quickly their last 10 closing totals of 2016. 42.5, 46.5, 41.5. The highest number, you get where I'm going with this, the highest closing total they had last 10 weeks of the season last year was 53.5 against Tulsa. Tulsa's regularly in the 70s. It's a team that odds makers don't think can score. Willie Fritz in his second year with a quarterback more to his liking, and Jonathan Banks, Kansas State transfer, can run and throw. A bunch of guys back on offense now, learning this system, which is unique, let's face it. I expect huge leaps out of this offense this year. Defensively, a lot of returning starters back. Defensively, it's Tulane. They're just not that good. Even the people that would argue me to say, well, Fritz's offense shortens games, I'm not so sure, because when Fritz's offense was rolling at Georgia Southern, big plays come out of the ground game, and with the clock stopping every first down, I'm not so sure that he shortens games. I think Tulane, at those prices I read you earlier, Teddy, between 36.5 and 53.5, come on. It's 2017 college football with a team that should be better on offense. They play nothing but explosive offenses in that AAC conference, a lot of offensive-minded head coaches. Tulane over the total. I think it's a spot we can capitalize on. Hopefully, odds makers don't catch on too soon.
And another one that you can bet right from the get-go, the market's not going to be looking for high totals on Tulane coming into the regular season. Rob, great information. Thank you so much for sharing with our SportsBit viewers. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself and where they can find your information?
Well, you know, Teddy, I've been in this game for a long, long time, 24, 25 years now. Get all the stuff that I produce across the internet from sportsmemo.com or Rob Veno Sports. You mentioned something at the top of this podcast. I just want to point out, if you're looking for full conference previews, team by team, go ahead and check the blog section at sportsmemo.com. I've been doing these previews with Andrew Lang for the better part of 6 weeks now. They're archived. You can hear about every team, not just an individual team per conference. Once again, sportsmemo.com, robvenosports.com. Find me, Rob Veno Sports 1 on Twitter.
Thanks so much, Rob. We'll talk to you again at some point in the not-too-distant future.
Always a pleasure, TC. Thanks for having me.
Good job, Teddy. Good job, Robbie Veno. That was a lot of fun talking college football, which also is right around the corner. Remember, there's 5 games Saturday, August 26th.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is right around the corner. And once August starts, football season is here, flat out. And if you're not getting excited yet, you should be, because we say right around the corner. If you're not doing your college football homework right now, other people are. That's why we have Rob Veno talking here on SportsBit. Let's get the play of the day.
All right, money time play of the day. Back to the Cowboys and Cardinals. Betting number 241-242. Dallas, Arizona, under 35. Big movement on this. Open 37 in most shops. They've been betting it down to 35. But as usually the case here on SportsBit, we only get to pick from 2 games, sometimes only 1. So we'll go under here, and Garrett could be better than some of the quarterbacks he's going to use tonight. Look at that arm. There he is. Throw it, air it out. So that's what we'll go with tonight, and expect another low-scoring game if you look what's happened the last 5 years. You be safe. We will talk to you Monday, Teddy, and we'll have a busy week coming up on SportsBit. Have a good time at the seminar in Costa Rica.
Hey, thanks so much. Be sure to be watching on live stream all day Friday and Saturday right here on SBRpicks.com.